At 2:18 a.m. on April 5, 1943, Commander Donald MacDonald stood inside the Combat Information Center of USS O'Bannon, watching his radar operator follow a contact creeping along the surface at 8 knots, 40 miles off the Russell Islands. He was 41 years old, with 17 months commanding destroyers and 0 submarines sunk. The Imperial Japanese Navy still had 73 operational submarines prowling American convoy routes in the Solomon Islands. Each carried 10 Type 95 torpedoes and a 76mm deck gun capable of crippling or sinking a destroyer at close range. MacDonald's destroyer squadron had just finished bombarding Japanese positions at New Georgia and was steaming back toward Tulagi Harbor when the radar return appeared 9,350 yards, slow, surfaced. USS O'Bannon was a Fletcher-class destroyer displacing 2,100 tons, armed with 5 5-inch guns, 6 depth-charge tracks, and 10 21-inch torpedo tubes, already credited with 17 battle stars, the most decorated destroyer in the Pacific Fleet. But submarines were a different enemy. Submarines killed destroyers. Between January and March 1943, Japanese submarines had sunk 4 American destroyers in the Solomons: USS De Haven, USS Aaron Ward, USS Tucker, USS Jarvis. 1,217 sailors lost. The pattern was always the same: destroyers hunting at night, submarines waiting submerged, torpedoes rising from below. A ship gone in 3 minutes. MacDonald ordered flank speed. O'Bannon surged ahead. The range closed 8,000 yards, 6,000, 4,000. The contact did not dive. Still surfaced. Still moving slowly. Either the Japanese lookouts were asleep or their radar was inoperative. At 1,000 yards, lookouts identified the target, a Japanese Ro-class submarine, medium patrol type, 73 meters long, armed with 4 torpedo tubes and the deck gun, 66 men aboard. MacDonald decided instantly. Ram her. Finish it quickly. O'Bannon accelerated to 35 knots. The bow wave rose white in the darkness, 500 yards, 300, 200. Then a shout from the bridge cut through the night. What if she was a mine layer? Japanese submarines in the Solomons had been laying mines for months. Striking a submarine packed with mines would vaporize O'Bannon, 15 officers and 273 enlisted men killed in a single blast. MacDonald ordered hard left rudder. The destroyer groaned and heeled sharply. A massive wave rolled off her hull and slammed into the submarine's side. The maneuver worked. Instead of ramming, O'Bannon slid alongside the submarine, running parallel at roughly 70 yards. Now MacDonald saw the danger. Japanese sailors were on deck, dark shorts, blue caps. They had been asleep moments earlier. Now they were scrambling awake, staring at the American destroyer towering over them, racing toward their deck gun. O'Bannon's main batteries could not depress low enough to fire. At 70 yards, maybe 60, the 5-inch guns needed at least 200 yards for proper depression. The 20mm guns were unmanned. The crew was set for surface action, not point-blank combat. Japanese sailors sprinted across the submarine's deck toward the 76mm cannon. If they reached it, they could fire directly into O'Bannon's hull at point-blank range, punch through the thin plating, detonate the forward magazine, and kill everyone in the bow. MacDonald ordered engines ahead, trying to open distance, but O'Bannon was a 2,000-ton destroyer. She could not pivot instantly. The submarine remained there, parallel, close enough to strike with a thrown tool. On O'Bannon's deck, sailors grabbed whatever they could hurl: wrenches, spanners, coffee mugs, anything to stop the Japanese from reaching that gun. Then someone opened a storage locker near the forward deckhouse. Inside were sacks of potatoes, part of the crew's food stores. Someone had an idea that would either buy them seconds or doom them all. Seaman First Class Ambrose Harden seized the first potato, round, firm, roughly the size of a hand grenade, and hurled it at the nearest Japanese sailor charging the deck gun. It struck the man in the shoulder. He froze, stared at the brown object rolling across the deck, then dove for cover. More O'Bannon sailors grabbed potatoes and began throwing them one after another. The Japanese sailors stopped running and began dodging, picking up the potatoes, examining them, then throwing them back or pitching them overboard into the Black Sea. They thought they were grenades. They had to be grenades. What else would Americans throw in combat? In the darkness at 70 yards, a main potato and a Mark II fragmentation grenade were indistinguishable: round, brown, similar weight. Gunner Bud Morrow threw 6 potatoes in 30 seconds. Each hit the submarine's deck. The Japanese scrambled to get rid of them overboard, back toward the destroyer, never reaching the deck gun. The 76mm cannon remained unmanned and silent. George Starkey stood on the amidships searchlight platform, with a clear view of the entire submarine deck. He watched Japanese sailors panic, flinging potatoes into the sea, bracing for explosions that never came. The scene was surreal, a destroyer battling a submarine with vegetables. MacDonald used the time. Engines ahead full. O'Bannon surged forward. The range opened 80 yards, 100, 150. The potatoes kept flying. The Japanese kept dodging, still not realizing they were not grenades. At 200 yards, MacDonald ordered the potato barrage stopped. The 5-inch guns could depress now. Gun crews swung the barrels down and loaded high-explosive shells. The submarine remained on the surface, still parallel, Japanese sailors still tossing potatoes overboard. MacDonald ordered, "Commence firing." Gun number 2 fired first. A 5-inch high-explosive shell struck the conning tower directly. The blast ripped through the pressure hull, spraying metal fragments across the deck. Japanese sailors dove for hatches. Gun number 4 fired. Another direct hit. The deck gun mount exploded, pieces of the 76mm cannon flying into the water. Now the submarine was taking real damage, not from potatoes, but from naval guns firing at 200 yards. The Japanese submarine captain made his choice. Crash dive, submerge, escape. The bow dipped and seawater washed over the forward deck. Some sailors reached the hatches, some did not. The submarine plunged. MacDonald ordered hard right rudder, bringing O'Bannon directly over the dive point. The destroyer crossed the churning water where the submarine vanished. Depth charge crews stood ready. 6 K-type depth charges were loaded, each containing 300 pounds of Torpex, set to detonate at 75 feet. The submarine was diving, trying to reach 150 feet and slip beneath the pattern, but she was damaged. The conning tower hit had compromised something. Oil bubbled to the surface, dark streaks spreading through the foam. MacDonald ordered the charges released. 3 depth charges rolled from the stern racks, splashed, and sank. The pattern was precise, bracketing the submarine's estimated position. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Then the ocean erupted. 3 massive explosions. White columns of water shot 200 feet into the air. The shockwave hit Onan's hull, rattled every plate, every rivet. Sailors grabbed handrails to stay upright. Then, silence. The water settled. Oil spread across the surface. Debris floated up. Wood fragments, fabric, personal items. No survivors, no submarine surfacing, just oil and wreckage. MacDonald studied the debris field. Had they sunk her, or had the submarine escaped damaged? In 3 days, another American destroyer would find out. April 5, 0600 hours. Dawn broke over the Solomon Islands. Onan's crew secured from battle stations. The radar screen was empty. No contacts, no surface submarines, just open ocean and the oil slick they'd left behind. Ernest Harrer stood on deck looking at the potato storage locker, half empty now. Maybe 60 potatoes left. The rest were either in the ocean or scattered across a Japanese submarine's deck. He'd thrown for himself. Never thought he'd fight a war with vegetables. Commander MacDonald filed his action report at 0800. Contact made at 0218. Guns fired at 0230. Depth charges dropped at 0235. Claimed 1 submarine damaged or sunk. Oil and debris observed. The report didn't mention potatoes. How could it? MacDonald wasn't sure anyone would believe it. A Fletcher-class destroyer armed with 5 inches guns and depth charges had used Maine potatoes as weapons. The whole thing sounded like a bad joke, but the crew knew. Word spread through the ship by breakfast. The cook who'd first opened that storage locker became a legend. The men who'd thrown potatoes got backslaps and handshakes. Someone started calling it the Great Potato Battle. The name stuck. Onan arrived at Tulagi Harbor at 1400 hours. Destroyer USS Strong was already there. Commander Joseph Wellings commanding. Strong had been part of the same night bombardment force. She'd stood by during Onan's submarine attack, watched on radar, seen the depth charge explosions. Wellings came aboard. Onan that afternoon met with MacDonald, discussed the engagement. MacDonald explained the close approach, the ramming decision, the hard turn, the guns that couldn't depress. Then he mentioned the potatoes. Wellings stared at him, asked him to repeat that. MacDonald did, explained how the crew had thrown potatoes to keep Japanese sailors away from their deck gun, bought time to gain range, fire the 5 inches guns. Wellings didn't laugh. He'd seen enough combat to know desperation created strange solutions. The 2 captains studied charts. The submarine had been heading southwest when attacked, probably returning to Rabaul. If she'd survived the depth charges, she'd be damaged, leaking, moving slowly, vulnerable. April 7, 48 hours after the potato incident.
Onan and Strong
were on patrol northwest of Russell Islands.
Same area, different night. At
2,000 hours, Strong's radar picked up a surface contact.
7,000 yards, moving at 4 knots, barely making headway. Wellings ordered Strong to investigate. Onan followed. The range closed. 5,000 yards, 3,000. Strong's lookouts identified the contact. Japanese submarine, same class as before, RARO type, medium, patrol,
and she was damaged.
Moving slow, trailing oil. It was RO-34, same submarine.
She'd survived Onan's depth charges 2 days earlier, limped away underwater, made emergency repairs. Now she was trying to reach Rabolon. The surface, 600 m to go. Heavily damaged. No chance. Strong opened fire. At 2,000 yards, 5 inches guns, high explosive shells.
The first salvo hit the submarine's pressure hull. 3 direct hits. Metal screened. The conning tower buckled. Japanese sailors scrambled topside. Tried to man the deck gun. Failed. Onan joined the barrage. Both destroyers firing.
10 5-inches guns,
hammering the submarine. Shell after shell. The submarine's hull was torn apart. Fires broke out. The deck gun was destroyed again.
This time there was no crash dive, no escape.
RO-34 couldn't submerge. Too much damage. The pressure hull was compromised in 6 places. Water was flooding in. The submarine was sinking on the surface. At 2007, RO-34's bow went under.
The stern rose, propellers visible, still turning.
Then
she slid beneath the waves.
66 men aboard. No survivors. No rescue, just bubbles and oil. MacDonald watched from Onan's bridge. Same submarine, same crew.
He'd fought them with potatoes 48 hours ago.
Now they were gone. And someone back in the United States was about to turn this into the strangest story of the Pacific War. April 12, 1943, 1 week after the potato incident.
Onan's action report reached Admiral William Hawley's headquarters at Noumea, New Caledonia. The report mentioned guns, depth charges, damage assessment, standard naval engagement language. Still no mention of potatoes.
But crew members wrote letters home. Sailors always wrote letters. And some of those sailors mentioned the strangest detail. From the submarine fight, they'd thrown potatoes, actual potatoes, at a Japanese submarine. The letters went through Navy censors. The censors read them, laughed, then approved them. What military secret could potatoes reveal? The letters reached the United States in early May. Families read them. Neighbors heard the stories. Local newspapers picked them up. Small-town papers in Maine and Massachusetts ran headlines. Local sailor fights submarine with potatoes.
Navy destroyer uses Maine vegetables as weapons.
The story spread bigger. Newspapers noticed. The Boston Globe ran it. The New York Times mentioned it. By late May, half of America had heard about USS Onan and the potato battle. The details got bigger with each retelling. Some versions claimed the potatoes had actually sunk the submarine. Others said Japanese sailors thought they were bombs. The Maine Potato Growers Association heard the story in early June. They held an emergency meeting in Pries, discussed the publicity opportunity. Maine potatoes had fought in combat, saved American lives. This was marketing gold. They voted unanimously. Create a commemorative plaque. Send it to USS Onan. Honor the crew. Promote Maine agriculture. Win the war with potatoes. June 14, 1943. The plaque arrived at Noumea, solid brass, 12 and x 18 inches. Engraved text read, a tribute to the officers and men of the USS Onan for their ingenuity in using our now proud potato to sink a Japanese submarine in the spring of 1943. Presented by the potato growers of the State of Maine. The plaque claimed Onan had sunk the submarine with potatoes, not damaged it, sunk it. The Maine potato growers didn't know about USS Strong's follow-up attack, didn't know RO-34 had survived 2 more days. They'd read the newspaper versions, the simplified versions, the versions that made better stories. Onan's crew mounted the plaque near the mess-hall. Men walked past it daily. Some smiled, some rolled their eyes. Nobody corrected the text. If Maine wanted to believe they'd Sunk a submarine with vegetables, fine.
The war had bigger problems. Readers Digest ran a full article in August, 6 pages, illustrations.
The title was The Navy's Strangest Battle.
The story described Onan charging at full speed. Japanese sailors sleeping, the hard turn, potatoes flying through the air.
Japanese panic, submarine sinking. The article made it sound like a Hollywood movie.
Commander MacDonald read the
Reader's Digest piece in September.
He'd returned to Pearl Harbor for maintenance.
Someone handed him the magazine. He read it twice, shook his head. This wasn't how it happened. The potatoes had bought time, nothing more.
The 5 inches guns and depth charges had done the real work. He started telling people the truth.
The potatoes were thrown, yes, but they didn't sink anything. The submarine had survived.
USS Strong had finished the job 2 days later.
Some people listened. Most preferred the legend. The story kept growing. New versions appeared. Some claimed Japanese sailors had abandoned ship because of the potatoes.
Others said the submarine had surfaced with hatches open and
flooded. MacDonald spent the next 40 years trying to correct the record. Onan continued fighting. Kula Gulf, Kalimbangara La Vela. More battle stars, more Japanese ships sunk. Real sinkings with real weapons.
But none of those battles got plaques from agricultural associations. None made it into Reader Digest. By 1944, every sailor in the Pacific Fleet had heard about the potato
battle. Most didn't believe it. Some did, and somewhere in the United States,
potato sales were probably higher than ever.
June 1943. Imperial Japanese Navy Headquarters at Rabaul. Vice Admiral Junichi Kusaka's
casualty reports from the Solomon Islands campaign.
Submarine losses were mounting. I-18 sunk in February. RO-34 sunk in April. RO-102 sunk in May. 3 submarines, 212 men, all dead. The Americans were getting better at anti-submarine warfare.
Better radar, better sonar, better depth charge
patterns. Japanese submarines that once hunted freely now struggled to survive.
Destroyers like Onan were everywhere.
Fast, aggressive, deadly. Kusaka had no idea one of those submarine kills involved potatoes.
The action reports from RO-34's final patrol never mentioned unusual weapons, just American destroyers, gunfire, depth charges.
Standard Pacific War combat. The potato detail was an American story, not a Japanese one. Onan spent July and August on patrol duty, destroyer
screening, shore bombardment, anti-aircraft work. The ship performed exactly as designed.
5 inches guns, depth
charges, torpedoes, real weapons doing real damage.
The crew kept the potato plaque mounted in the mess hall. New sailors reported aboard, saw the plaque, asked questions. Veterans told the story. Some versions were accurate, some
were wildly exaggerated. By September, some crew members claimed they'd thrown 200 potatoes.
Others said the Japanese submarine had surrendered. August 6, Battle of Vela Gulf. Onan joined 6 destroyers hunting Japanese reinforcement convoys. The American force intercepted 4 Japanese destroyers near Kalangara. Night surface action. Torpedoes and gunfire. 3 Japanese destroyers sunk.
Onan launched 10 torpedoes.
Scored 2.
September 3, Battle of Vela La Vela.
Onan engaged 3 Japanese destroyers, evacuating troops from Vela La Vela Island. Close-range gun battle. Destroyer Yugumo sunk.
Onan collided with sinking destroyer Chevalier.
61
American sailors died in that collision.
The bow was badly damaged. Onan limped back to Tulagi for emergency repairs.
Commander MacDonald stood on the bridge watching damage control teams work.
The collision had crushed 40 feet of the bow. Water was flooding forward compartments.
Pumps were barely keeping up.
This was real destroyer combat.
Not vegetables, not legends, just steel and explosives, and men dying in the dark.
Onan reached Tulagi on September 5. Shipyard workers swarmed the destroyer. cut away damaged plates, welded temporary patches.
The repairs would take weeks,
maybe months. The ship was out of action.
MacDonald wrote letters to the families of the 61 dead sailors.
Each letter took 30 minutes.
He explained how their sons and husbands had died serving their country, fighting the enemy, doing
their duty. He didn't mention potatoes.
These families deserve better than vegetable stories.
October 1943, Onan departed Tulagi for Pearl Harbor. Major repairs needed. New bow section, new plates.
The voyage took 12 days. The ship arrived at Pearl Harbor on October 31, went into dry dock immediately. The Pearl Harbor shipyard workers had heard the potato story.
Everyone had heard it. When Onan's crew came
ashore, sailors from other ships asked about it, asked if it was true, asked how many potatoes, asked if the Japanese
really thought they were grenades.
Most of Onan's crew was tired of the story. They'd fought in 8 major surface
actions, sunk multiple Japanese ships, earned 17 battle stars, the most decorated destroyer in the Pacific Fleet. But everyone wanted to talk about potatoes. Seaman Ambrose Hardin gave an interview to a Navy journalist in November.
The journalist asked about the potato incident.
Hardin confirmed it.
Said he'd thrown the first potato. Said the Japanese had panicked.
The interview was published in Navy newspapers across the Pacific. Now official Navy publications were spreading the legend. Commander MacDonald read the interview, shook his head.
The story was never going to die.
He'd be explaining this for the rest of his life.
January 1944, Onan completed repairs at Pearl Harbor.
New bow section, new plates, fresh paint.
The destroyer departed Hawaii on January 15. Destination:
Marshall Islands. Operation Flintlock, the invasion of Kwajalein Atoll.
February 1, Onan provided fire support for Marine landings at Kwajalein.
5 inches guns bombarded Japanese
beach positions for 6 hours.
2,000 shells fired, enemy bunkers destroyed.
Infantry pushed inland, no potatoes involved, just high explosive shells and naval gunfire doctrine.
The Marshall Islands campaign continued through February. Onan screen carriers shot down Japanese aircraft, escorted supply convoys, standard destroyer work, the kind that won wars, the kind that never made headlines back home. March 19. Onan joined Task Force 58 for strikes against Palau. The Fast Carrier Task Force launched 400 aircraft against Japanese airfields and shipping. Onan's job was air defense, protect the carriers, shoot down incoming bombers. At 1,420 hours, 12 Japanese bombers attacked the task force. Batty bombers, twin-engine carrying torpedoes.
Onan's 5 inches guns opened fire at 8,000
yard radar directed fire. The first bomber exploded at 6,000 yards, the second at 4,000.
The third made it to 2,000 yards before Onan's 40mm guns shredded it.
3 bombers destroyed, 0 hits on American carriers.
Exactly what destroyers were designed to do.
The engagement lasted 4 minutes. Nobody back home would hear about it.
No agricultural associations would send
plaques. June 19, 44, Battle of the Philippine Sea.
The largest carrier. Battle of the Pacific War.
9 American carriers against 5 Japanese carriers.
For 70 American aircraft against 373 Japanese aircraft.
Onan screened the Carrier Hornet. Japanese aircraft came in waves. First wave at 1,000 hours, 27 bombers, Onan shot down 4. Second wave at 1,300 hours, 31 bombers. Onan shot down 3. Third wave at 1,600 hours, 19 bombers. Onan shot down 2.
By sunset, Onan had fired 3,800 rounds of 5 inches ammunition, 1,200 rounds of 40mm, 4,000 rounds of 20mm, 9 confirmed aircraft kills. The deck was littered with spent shell casings.
Gun barrels were glowing red.
Crews were exhausted.
The battle was an American victory. Japanese naval aviation was destroyed. 3 carriers sunk, 426 aircraft lost. Japan's carrier force would never recover. Onan had done her part.
9 aircraft, professional gunnery, real combat.
October 1944. Battle of Lee Gulf. Onan joined 7th Fleet destroyers at Suruga. Strait, the last battleship engagement in naval history. Japanese battleships Yamashiro and Fuso attempting to break through to Lee Gulf.
American battleships West Virginia, Maryland, Mississippi, Tennessee, California, and
Pennsylvania waiting in ambush. Onin launched torpedoes at 2,300 hours, range 4,000 yards. 2 torpedoes hit battleship Yamashiro. The Japanese battleship was already burning from other torpedo hits. She capsized at 23:19. 1,200 Japanese sailors drowned. Fuso broke apart under concentrated fire. Exploded at 23:45. 1,500 more dead. Searle Strait was a slaughter. American battleships and destroyers destroyed an entire Japanese force. Onin contributed 2 torpedo hits, professional destroyer tactics, the kind Admiral Nimitz would cite in official reports. By November, Onin
had earned 17 battle stars, more than any other destroyer in the Pacific Fleet.
Guadalcanal, Kula Gulf, Vela, La Vela, Philippine Sea, Lee Gulf. Real battles, real victories. Thousands of rounds fired. Dozens of enemy ships and aircraft destroyed, and the United States Navy was about to give Onin the highest unit recognition possible.
Not for potatoes, for everything else.
December 1944, Pearl Harbor. Admiral Chester Nimitz reviewed destroyer performance records for the Pacific Campaign.
Battle stars, enemy ships sunk, aircraft destroyed, casualties
taken. Service record. Onin stood out. 17 battle stars, the most of any destroyer in the United States Navy. First Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. Damage to battleship Hay.
3 submarines engaged.
23 aircraft destroyed. 4 Japanese destroyers sunk. Philippine Sea Lee Gulf. 32 months of Nimitz signed the recommendation. Presidential Unit Citation, the highest
unit award in the Navy, given to ships that displayed extraordinary heroism in action against the enemy.
Onin, qualified on every measure. Performance, courage, results. January 5, 1945. The citation was official. Presidential Unit Citation, awarded to USS Onin and her crew. The citation mentioned Guadalcanal, surface
actions, air defense, submarine warfare, professional performance under fire.
It did not mention potatoes. Commander MacDonald received the news at sea. Onin was screening carriers off Luzon. He read the citation to the crew over the ship's intercom. 290 men listened. Some had been aboard since Guadalcanal. Others were replacements. All of them had earned this. The war continued.
Onin bombarded Uoma in February, supported marine landings, provided naval gunfire for 3 weeks, fired 8,000
rounds, destroyed Japanese gun positions. Standard destroyer work, the kind that won islands. Through June, Okinawa campaign, Onin joined
the radar picket line, the most dangerous assignment in the Pacific.
Destroyers positioned 50 miles from the fleet. Early warning against kamikaze attacks. Japanese suicide planes came in waves, hundreds of them. Onin shot down 11 kamikazes at Okinawa. Radar directed fire. Proximity fused shells. New Mark 32 fire control system worked perfectly.
5 inches guns could track aircraft at 12,000 yards, engage at 8,000, destroy at 4,000.
Professional anti-aircraft gunnery. 16 destroyers were sunk on radar picket duty at Okinawa. Onin survived. Luck, training, equipment, all 3. The crew called her Lucky O,
not because of potatoes, because she'd fought in every major battle and brought her crew home.
August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered. The war was over. Onin had been at sea
for 40 months, steamed 218,000 miles, fired 43,000 rounds of 5 inches ammunition, launched 90 torpedoes, shot down 34 aircraft, engaged 8 Japanese surface ships, 3 submarines. September 2, Tokyo Bay. Admiral William Hawley personally selected Onin to escort battleship Missouri to the surrender ceremony. Hawley's message was clear. He wanted the most decorated destroyer in the Pacific Fleet present, the ship that had fought from Guadalcanal
Canal to Japan's doorstep. Onan anchored 400 yards from Missouri. MacDonald stood on the bridge watching Japanese officials sign the surrender documents. He'd commanded Onan for 37 months, longer than any other destroyer captain in the war, survived when 800 other destroyer skippers had been killed or relieved. The Navy promoted MacDonald to captain in October, assigning him command of a cruiser. He left Onan in November. His replacement was Commander Ralph Hoard, a capable officer with combat experience, but he hadn't been there for Guadalcanal, hadn't witnessed the potato incident. Onan sailed from Tokyo Bay to San Francisco in November, arriving December 2nd. The crew went on leave. Most would be discharged within weeks. The ship would be decommissioned and placed in reserve. The war was over. The Navy was shrinking, but that potato plaque remained mounted in the mess hall, solid brass, still proclaiming that Onan had sunk a submarine with mere vegetables, and the legend was poised to outlive the ship by 8 decades. On March 19, 1946, USS Onan was decommissioned at San Diego. The crew was discharged. The ship was towed to the reserve fleet, mothballed, sealed, and preserved. Just another Fletcher-class destroyer among hundreds. That brass potato plaque went into storage somewhere. Naval records don't specify where. Some say it stayed mounted in the mess hall when the ship was sealed, others claim a crew member took it home. A maritime museum displayed a plaque matching that description until the 1970s. Then it disappeared. Lost, stolen, nobody knows. Donald MacDonald retired from the Navy in 1953. Captain, 2 Navy Crosses, 3 Silver Stars, 2 Legions of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, the most decorated destroyer commander of World War II. He settled in California, raised a family, and worked in defense contracting. For the next 40 years, people asked him about the potato story, journalists, historians, veterans groups. He told them the same thing every time: the potatoes bought us time, nothing more. USS Strong sank that submarine 2 days later. We didn't sink anything with vegetables. Nobody listened. The legend was more compelling than the truth. Newspapers kept running the story: destroyer sinks submarine with potatoes. Reader's Digest reprinted it in 1952. Coronet magazine ran their version in 1953. Each retelling made the story bigger. MacDonald died in 1995 at age 93. His obituary in the Los Angeles Times mentioned the potato incident, not Guadalcanal, not the presidential unit citation, not 17 battle stars, just potatoes. USS Onan sat in reserve until 1970. The Navy struck her from the register. She was sold for scrap in 1971, cut apart, melted down, recycled. The most decorated destroyer of World War II became razor blades and rebar. But Seaman First Class Ambrose Harden lived until 2006. He gave interviews in the 1990s, confirmed he threw the first potato, said the Japanese panicked, thought they were grenades. His testimony kept the legend alive. Gunner Bud Morrow died in 2009, George Starkey in 2012, Ernest Herr in 2003. Each one told the potato story before they died, confirming it happened, not exactly like newspapers claimed, but it happened. The story survives because it's strange, because it's humorous, because in a war that killed 60 million people, one moment of absurd improvisation stands out: sailors throwing potatoes at a submarine, the enemy fleeing in panic, nobody dying from vegetables. But Onan's true legacy isn't potatoes. It's 32 months of combat, 17 battle stars, a presidential unit citation, 8 major surface actions, 34 aircraft destroyed, 290 men who served, 229 who came home alive. Those men fought with 5-inch guns, depth charges, torpedoes, professional naval tactics. They earned their decorations with steel and courage, not vegetables. The potatoes were 30 seconds out of 32 months. A footnote, a legend, a story that grew too big to die. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button. Every like tells YouTube to share this story with more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every day, stories of sailors and soldiers who fought with courage and improvisation. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from: United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia. Our community spans the globe. You're not just a viewer, you're helping keep these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure the crew of USS Onan doesn't fade into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.